Let's get you images now of a protest that turned rather ugly in Odisha. This was a protest by Congress workers who attempted to get out the assembly, and it led to a clash with police officials as water cannons was also used to disperse the mob that had gathered. This was over the suspension of 12 Congress MLAs by the speaker in Odisha that led to this particular protest, and so Congress workers gathered in large numbers to condemn this suspension. These are the images that you see on your screens of the water cannons being used to deploy the protesters. Cops dressed in riot gear. We understand that there were also clashes that broke out during these protests in Bhubaneswar. Suryagni is joining us with more details on this. Suryagni, as we beam these images of the Congress protest, run us through exactly why these Congress workers attempted to get out the assembly.
Well, Akshita, it goes back 2 days prior where 12, initially the Congress has 14 MLAs in the Odisha Assembly. Initially 12 of the MLAs were suspended and later 2 more. So total 14 of them have been suspended by the Odisha Speaker, allegedly because they were creating a ruckus inside the well of the Assembly. That is the reason that has been given out by the Assembly. Now, following which the Congress has hit the streets of Bhubaneswar against the incumbent BJP government. Time and again we had seen how the Congress has claimed that they are not being allowed to raise issues in the Assembly of Odisha, and it is something on those lines also happened on Monday, where initially, as I mentioned, 12 of them were firstly suspended and then 2 more. So following which this protest was called by the Congress workers and leaders in Bhubaneswar, and we see how the police, stopping them and using, water cannons to disperse the crowd. Back to you.
All right. Thanks, Suryagni, for joining us with all of those details. Okay, as we get you these images, you can see scores, hundreds of Congress workers really gathering in large numbers in Bhubaneswar, continuing their stir. And this despite clashing with cops, water cannons being used. They attempted to march towards the assembly. Images on the right of your screens show these workers pushing past barricades and moving straight across. With the assembly currently underway, the area is a high security zone, which is why these Congress workers weren't allowed close by. 12 Congress MLAs were suspended for creating ruckus, and that's what's led to this showdown on the streets of Bhubaneswar as Congress workers in massive numbers coming together. You see these images of the police crackdown as well, as cops in riot gear were seen chasing the protesters away. But vandalism at its peak there on the streets of Bhubaneswar as Congress workers are seen hurling chairs, throwing chairs at the police officials, pushing past barricades, attempting to get closer to the assembly. The cops have been struggling to bring the situation currently under control. Dressed in riot gear, you can see how in fact they were pushing away these protesters, but to no avail. Let's bring back Suryagni on this broadcast. Ugly images really emerging of that protest, Suryagni. You can see chairs being hurled at police officials, pushing past the barricades as well. These protesters going on a rampage.
Well, as I mentioned, that this protest was called by the Congress over of all of their MLAs. Now, and we can see a heavy crowd, protesting against the BJP government in front of the assembly, and no crowd is ever allowed by any administration to come across certain government buildings where government business takes place. The assembly is one of them. Irrespective of the state, nowhere in the country, these marches are allowed, be it Bengal, Delhi, or Bhubaneswar, as we are looking at now. As you mentioned, Dakshita, yes, the protest did take an ugly turn, where and maybe that's the reason why there were inputs of the Bhubaneswar police, the Odisha police, that things might take an ugly turn and there might be violence, and that's the reason why a huge deployment of the Bhubaneswar police was deployed, especially police of the in their right gear, that is rapid action force, was also deployed. Water cannon was initially used to disperse the crowd, and That is something that we have been seeing, that to disperse the crowd, water cannon was initially used, but the crowd, as the crowd was still present, the police had to use force to make sure that the situation comes under control. The protest is still going on, and it has to be seen how the police administration brings the situation under control.
All right. Thanks, Surya, for joining us with those details. We'll track the latest updates that come in on this story. Dramatic images from Bhubaneswar of the Congress protest and an ugly stir there as they're seen clashing with police officials.